This is an opportunity to learn more about the expertise, experience, and excitement each of our practitioners brings to the services they provide for clients here at East Wind Healing Center in Iowa City, Iowa. We are a collection of independent business owners who share this beautiful, integrative healing space. We are offering this podcast as an opportunity to learn more about services offered here at Eastwind, and this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It is not a substitute for proper medical care or the initiation of a practitioner-client relationship. My name is Dr. Kerri Husman, and I have a psychiatric practice as well as a coaching and wellness practice under our roof here at Eastwind. It is my pleasure today to introduce to you Dr. Karen Nelson, who is a counseling psychologist with more than 25 years of experience. Her doctorate is from Northwestern University. Before entering private practice, she was a clinical associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Iowa. Her approach over the years to treating anxiety has evolved, and that's what we're discussing today. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. So, you specialize in treating anxiety, and most of us get stressed and anxious. What is the difference between stress and anxiety from your perspective?
Sure. Well, stress is part of being alive. And we, when we're under stress, we have kind of a lot of thoughts, lots and lots of thoughts, and often some physical sensations like tight shoulders, tummy trouble, greater irritability, and especially rumination. And those are similar symptoms, similar sensations as happen with anxiety, but under stress, they tend to come and go based on the intensity of the context or the stress. Anxiety, on the other hand, when it reaches a threshold where it might be beneficial to come see somebody like me, has been sticking around and getting in your way.
Mm-hmm.
And the National Institutes of Mental Health indicate that at any given time, 30% of adults would meet criteria for one of the anxiety disorders that have been identified.
Wow. So lots of need out there.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you say the difference is between counseling and evidence-based treatment for anxiety?
Sure. When you go to a counselor, you feel better, and that is the goal. And oftentimes, simply feeling not simple, it's a powerful thing to feel heard and understood, and often have maybe a shift in your perspective. And those are all part of good care. Evidence-based treatment adds specific strategies and techniques which are identified to be effective for each different kind of presenting concern. So it's as if you or a loved one had a heart attack, you would certainly expect that in the ER and that their care would all be based on the most current medical literature and research. Similarly, as a psychologist, I am committed to providing research-based, kind of up-to-date care to be most efficient and effective in helping clients who come to see me.
Well, I couldn't agree with that more, and I'm so glad that that's what you're bringing to the clients who come to Eastwind. So you describe yourself as a behavioral therapist. Can you tell us what that really means?
Sure. Um, Honestly, that has been the biggest evolution in my practice as a psychologist is discovering and rediscovering and sometimes rediscovering the importance of including both assessment and help for clients to change some of their behavior. And I have a beautiful office in downtown Iowa City, but where people want to see the changes out in the life that they're leading, and that usually means doing something different. So If people come to see me, it is an um, action-oriented outside of session practice, so that they can move on. I say that I know I've done a good job if I run into my clients at the grocery store, because they're out living their life and they don't need to keep seeing me.
Hmm. Good, good. What is it like in the first visit with you?
Um, well, it starts with a phone call, and common thing that I will ask is, if coming to therapy with me is worth your time and effort and money, what will you have more of and less of in the life that you lead? And oftentimes people will say, well, I want to feel less anxious or I want to feel happier. And absolutely, those are good goals. What a behavior therapist asks is, what will we see you doing more of or less of? So if I could see a little 25-second video of your life, if therapy is helpful, what will be on that video? So when you're less anxious, maybe you'll be able to go to a sporting event that you're currently avoiding because it makes you too stimulated or anxious.
Hmm. Good, good example. And what's important for um, people to know um, about their own anxiety condition? So when people say, I'm anxious,
Hmm.
I mean, there's a dozen different things it could be.
Hmm.
How do you determine what sorts of anxiety issues are showing up for them?
Sure. Um, well, psychologists love assessment. And I am a psychologist, so an initial part of therapy is determining kind of what specifically is going on, because um, knowing what the core issues are guides treatment. And I liken it to, if you slip on the ice and hurt your ankle, and it's just not getting better, you you at some point might go get an x-ray, and that will tell you, or you go seek medical attention to tell you, is it a bad sprain, is there a bad chip, or have you broken a bone? And clients that come to see me aren't broken, but identifying specifically what it is that's going on with them guides um, guides the care to make it the most efficient that it can be. So, for example, um, in phobia treatment, somebody is specifically anxious about some kind of stimuli, and so they avoid it.
Hmm.
Okay, so it could be, and you could be living a good life and stay away from air travel, but to get a promotion that really matters to you for your career or job, suddenly you need to be able to get on an airplane and fly once a month. Then and only then is it important to address the limitations of that avoidance. Okay. And so knowing that it is a phobia as opposed to a general anxiety
Hmm.
helps treatment zero in on what might need to happen in order for you to be able to get on that airplane.
Makes sense. Thank you
Hmm.
for that.
Hmm.
So if someone wants to try therapy with you, what are
Hmm.
the next steps?
Sure. Um, it starts with going to my website or sending me an email,
Okay.
and then we set up a time for a 5-10 minute phone call to make sure that your goals match the things that I can offer.
Hmm.
So I tell people I'm a pretty good psychologist, but I'm not good. I'm not a good match for everybody, and I don't know everything. So the longer I've been in practice, the more humble I get about referring people to the right clinician.
Hmm.
So that first phone call is a lot about determining that, and then a first visit continues with some assessment. I want a client to know, leaving a first visit, like what my vibe is like, but also what therapy would look like and about how long it would take. So, for example, Um, Therapy with me is relatively short term.
Okay.
So if somebody happens to see me, and we talk about this at the front end, if somebody happens to work with me for, let's say, 6 months, which is a very long time, the average number of psychotherapy sessions is 2 or 3. So if somebody happens to be working with me for 6 months, they know at the first 1 or 2 weeks of sessions that they'll be taking a month off to consolidate the stuff that they've worked on and their gains. And if they want to return after that 1 month off, that's fine. I'm glad to see them. I have found that long-term therapy, in my experience, both receiving and providing it, tends to lose its focus.
Hmm.
And so I just think that keeping things crisp and supporting people's autonomy is that's just kind of what I'm about at this point in my career.
Makes a lot of sense. I appreciate that. And so, just so I'm clear, so someone would see you for up to 6 months, and then there would be potentially a break?
Mhm.
Okay.
And and if they're in the middle of a huge life stressor, I'm not
Hmm.
rigid about it, but I
Yeah.
just the idea that I mean, I also want to convey that people aren't broken.
Hmm.
In my book, long-term therapy is a luxury and it can be tremendously beneficial, but not everybody needs it.
Yeah.
And so if people are looking for that, then I'm not a great match because I'm kind of get you moving. Um, and honestly, after about a 50% reduction in anxiety symptoms, people are fine to go and live their lives.
Hmm. And question about telehealth. Do you do in-person telehealth both? How does that work?
Sure, we all learned during the pandemic how effective telehealth can be,
For
and
sure.
um, um, because one of the hallmarks of anxiety is avoidance, um, I request that my clients who are coming in for anxiety come see me in person. So if it if their circumstances mean that telehealth is just makes more sense for their lives, I'll do that. But of the first 3 visits, at least one of them needs to be in person
Okay.
because it just meeting in person establishes the relationships. I also still, unlike you, Dr. Husman, I still give paper handouts, and so I like to be able to to pass handouts and and monitor. So I prefer in person.
Got it. Okay. But telehealth is definitely an option.
Mhm.
Good. And so it sounds like you like to do briefer therapy in general. What are the typical number of sessions someone would have who'd be working with you?
Um, whew, it um, it really varies based on well how ready they are to do some work.
Hmm.
And I mean, the fun part as a psychologist about treating anxiety is that people are looking for change. They are uncomfortable. Um, and often they're crestfallen when I explain that therapy with me isn't going to eradicate or stomp out those anxious feelings, but instead help them learn to live with them, manage them, and do the things that matter most to them. So I didn't really answer your question, but it varies quite a bit.
Okay. Okay. And I suppose if someone's worked on one issue and they realize, oh, now it's time to work on this issue. And so
Mhm.
you may be refocusing your efforts, working on a different set of symptoms because some of these things are in layers. Okay, good. Now, I have a question. One of the things that you do is CBT-I.
Mhm.
Could you tell us a little bit about what that stands for and what that means?
Sure. Um, that is cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, and that is a behavioral treatment for people with sleep problems. And I had the good fortune of getting kind of remarkable training for treating insomnia from a behavioral perspective through the U.S. military. And I am a civilian psychologist, but if you think about it, the military is very motivated to help active duty
Hmm.
soldiers to be able to sleep without medication but they're
Yep.
moving them, 3, 4 time zones away to be deployed, and they need them to be able to be alert and awake. So it was a great fortune, and it's been a lot of fun. It's also super effective, and when somebody is ready, it's kind of hard work,
Hmm.
um, and um, and boy does it have a great potential to help somebody that struggled with insomnia.
Oh, great. And is the number of sessions for CBTI similar to anxiety, or is it also fairly brief?
Um, it is certainly brief, sometimes
Okay.
briefer. Um, the literature says 8 to 10.
Okay.
Hmm.
Good. And would people typically be meeting with you once a week, once every other week, once a month? How,
Sure.
or does
Yeah.
that also vary depending on the person and
Um,
circumstance?
Certainly depends on their circumstance, but in the beginning, it's nice to be able to meet weekly so that we get momentum and they
Sure.
begin to experience both some relief and also some sense of mastery and know that they'll be following up and telling me about what they've tried. So homework, as it comes from a behavioral therapist, isn't always a worksheet. It's, hey, why don't you try something different before you go to bed tonight, and then let me know how it goes.
Got it. All right. So, any parting words, anything you'd like our listeners to know before we wrap up today?
Sure. Um, a way to think about anxiety could be, um, our efforts to get rid of anxiety can be like trying to take a fully inflated beach ball and try and get it to stay under the surface of the water when you're at the pool, right? And so our whole time in the pool becomes about trying to make that beach ball stay under the water. Well, we know what happens. So if therapy for anxiety with me is helpful, the beach ball is still there, meaning might still continue to have some anxiety and some anxiety, physical symptoms and thoughts. But you're out living your life, you're enjoying the pool, and that beach ball is at the other end of the pool, kind of floating around, and it's just not getting in your way as much.
Nice, nice to hear that. Well, thank you so much, Karen, for joining us today and for the important work you're doing. Potential clients can reach out to you with questions by going to Karen's website, anxietherapyiowacity.com, or her Eastwind bio page at eastwindhealingcenter.com, which includes her email. Thank you again for joining us today,
Thank
Karen,
you.
and
Yeah.
thank you to our listeners for joining us too. Have a great day.